We're back. We're continuing our conversation with Stephen Curtis, a man I've come to admire greatly for his acumen about things nuclear and specifically options that this country has at its disposal, if only we have the wit and the will to take advantage of them, that could greatly enhance the resilience as well as the diverse sources of supply of energy in this country. Um, I want to talk with you about several aspects of this, Steve, but just to get this last bit nailed down, the United States military has now been moving smartly, it seems, to bring some of this modular, small reactor technology to bear on bases and perhaps even in forward deployed situations down the road. Um, does the Nuclear Regulatory Commission get in their knickers as well, or can that be done on the say so of the military and really move smartly this technology forward to deployment?
Well, we dealt with this with the FAA and the UAVs, and the military decided they could fly UAVs in their own airspace, and the FAA didn't care as long as it wasn't in their airspace. So the military has the flexibility to do things within their realm if they're willing to take the risk for it. And I don't know what level they're willing to. It depends a lot on whether the NRC plays ball or not. And right now, I don't think they are. They're not looking towards an aggressive way to prove all these reactors. So it's possible the military will go get their own prototype and get their own base. And they're looking at mostly secluded bases right now. So maybe that's part of their strategy to say, well, it's not so dangerous because it's far away from people. And we'll see
Steve,
where that
one
goes.
of the things that makes this of such urgency for me is that, of course, as you know very well, as a member, as I mentioned, of our Secure the Grid coalition, we're looking at serious problems with the grid. The vulnerability that it has, whether it's to physical sabotage or cyber attack or electromagnetic pulse, either of the local kind or the most efficient space nuclear kind, or indeed naturally occurring phenomena like geomagnetic disturbances or solar flares. Any of those, especially those brought to bear by enemy action, could take down the grid, could destroy our country as a practical matter. To the extent that these reactors would presumably be brought to bear in part to enhance the resiliency of the grid, are there designs that are taking into account those kinds of vulnerabilities and that would be corrective of them?
Yeah, to me, this is like the biggest no-brainer that we have out there. These reactors are going to be what they call intrinsically safe. You can walk away from them; they won't melt down. They're going to be built underground, so a little more protected from any kind of external threat. We advocate microgrids because you can bury the cable, which gives you a little bit more resiliency in either physical terrorist or any kind of insult. But there's also the two parts of the grid are the supply and the delivery. We talk a lot about the delivery system and the transformers and those sorts of things, which are vulnerable. But we're being shown now that our delivery systems are very vulnerable. And when you
Yes.
talk about a power that's on 95% of the time, produces 100% clean energy, it's really hard to argue with. They say a lot
Right. This
about
is
the
this is the
cost,
generation side, not the delivery side,
generation
but
four and the
yeah,
small modular reactor side of it. And
yeah.
so there's so far I've not seen a downside to it. And what we're the hoop we're trying to jump through now is what they call the first of a kind commercial product. So the first color TV set cost 200 million, and the next ones cost $500 each. So that's what we're
Right.
looking at with this process. And my advocacy goes towards using spent fuel as a power source for these reactors.
Yeah, I was going to
It's
ask you
100%
about that. Talk a
available.
little bit about the quantities of spent fuel we have, and are all of these designs able to do that?
Nope, just the molten salt reactors. There's a few designs that are specifically oriented toward that direction. Sodium cooled, molten salt cooled could all be designed to do that, and you could do it with what I call liquid fuel or a solid fuel um, design. But we leave that up to free enterprise, in my estimate, to make that happen. The
How
bottom
much spent
line
fuel do
is
we have at this point,
we have
Steve, and
250
where is it?
years. Sitting on sites right now, there's 250 years of all the power that the U.S. uses electricity right now. There's that much of a supply sitting right now on our sites that people are trying to
Wow.
bury forever. And that
Yeah.
to me is a travesty.
Well, we're
100%
not
domestic,
making such
100%.
progress on that front either. But Steve, let me ask you this question
Mhm.
because one of the things talking about the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that just drives me to distraction is that for something on the order of 11 years, they have had a recommendation before them to do something to enhance the resiliency of the spent fuel cooling ponds that are at sites across this country. They have yet to do anything about that problem, as best I can tell, namely making sure that the cooling waters continue to cycle through, even if there's a grid down situation. They have generators that would operate for some period of time, maybe 7 days or so. But after that, you're toast, it seems. And how important is it that we get that fixed along with these other problems, do you think?
There's quite a bit of resilience to that system, Frank, and it would, if you put your mind to it, you could probably see a way to destroy it. But that wouldn't be my target if I was a terrorist. There's a lot better targets out there to cause more destruction. I
Well, I don't
think
want to
that
give
they
terrorists any ideas, but I do
no,
think
but
this
they
is one.
certainly
It may
need
not be a
to.
terrorist; it may just be a knock-on effect of a grid down
Sure,
situation. But I worry about
but the
Fukushimas all
point
over
is,
this
I
country.
there's we can get into that later, but I don't think that's a prime target. I think it's resilient. Certainly, there's a good point that you want to make sure your backup generators are working, and that you have time to get backup power to the place in case that's knocked out. There's
Yeah,
a number of ways to do that. It certainly needs to be paid attention to. Yeah.
Steve, this is a topic to which we will return in the near future
Okay.
with you. Thank you. I think this is a really urgent priority to just using the heat of that those facilities, perhaps as a power generation source would do it. But the NRC doesn't seem to give it a moment's thought. For 11 years, they've been considering it with no action to date. Just an example of the problems that we're having, I'm afraid, with that outfit. Steve Curtis, thank you for the efforts you're making on all of these fronts. Godspeed, and I hope that they will be successful in time. Thank you for joining us, folks. I hope you'll do so again tomorrow. Until then, this is Frank Gaffney. Thanks for watching.